It is a huge honor today that Ivan and his son Jeff came down from North Scottsdale. Was it raining on the way here?
Just a drop.
I just got back from my 7-mile run, and it was literally freezing. I think it was about 50 degrees, so if I'm out of air, you know why. But Ivan is a interesting man, and I'm so glad I got to interview him. Ivan Kirshner and this is his son Jeff entered the financial services area in 1990 after leaving the private practice of dentistry. He attended the University of Arizona, which I don't know why you went there. I went to ASU and you went to U of A.
I lived in Tucson.
I don't know why you'd have to go to U of A. Because I've been
county.
told that if you just drive real slow through Tucson, they'll throw a U of A diploma in your back seat. And,
I should have won my Arizona. If you were recording,
most-
I should have won the.
Most people don't go. You went to ASU? All right, so Jeff's the better half. I like Jeff more now. But most people don't go to U of A if they already have a high school diploma. But in this case, he did. And he graduated from the University of Tennessee College of Dentistry. And, God, I love that college. That's an awesome one. I think Corey Glenn went there.
School.
I think Corey Glenn's one of the greatest dentists.
Yeah, there's a lot of ET graduates here.
In his first professional career as a dentist, Ivan served as president of several dental organizations and served on the board of his local state associations. He has volunteered his services for underprivileged children and was on the board of directors of Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. We won't get into that, but that's a
Natural transition.
that's why that's why you had to get out of dentistry.
That's exactly.
and that's what got you into disability insurance.
That's why I transitioned after 20 years or 21 years.
And Ivan began his second career after retiring from dentistry after what, 22 years?
21.
21 years. He has
Seemed like
intensely.
22.
It seems like 20.
It seemed like 22.
Well, I was married 20 years and it seemed like 42. So I know how you
I didn't
feel.
mean to get you off your track. Okay.
He has intensely pursued classes and continuing education in finance and economics with emphasis on macroeconomic financial concepts since 1990. This has enabled him to assist hundreds of other health professionals in a unique way that they have not exposed to before. He has taught seminars on personal financial economics to many study groups and schools and has published several articles in dental publications dealing with planning and insurance matters. And Mamimi even likes him. God dang, that's my bullshit detector right there. Mamimi likes you.
I passed the test.
You passed the test. You got to be all good.
Got a cat's ass in my face. Great for PR.
And so now you're a field representative selling disability insurance to dentists with the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, which is out of New York, an indirect wholly owned subsidiary Guardian. Kirshner and Klarfeld Financial Group is not an affiliate. It's okay. Most people would rather look at Mamimi than me or Ivan any day. So thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure, Howard.
So I just want to start with the basic deal is every time I get an email from this podcast, the podcast is huge because number one, they're free, so the price is right.
I've watched it.
And they're on their smartphone, so they're listening using these community work.
That's the way.
So we've already passed 500,000 downloads just on iTunes.
Really?
So it's several thousand dentist show. They're almost all individuals driving to work, and they're probably under 30. I could maybe count 3 emails of anyone that's emailed me over 30. So these are all kids, and my job is to guesstimate what they're saying. The bottom line is they don't need disability because they're all going to live forever.
Exactly.
They don't need birth control because they're never going to get pregnant. They don't, they're never going to die. They're never going to get sick. I mean, they're looking at 2 grandpas thinking, oh yeah, disability. Yeah, if you're old and senile, but they're all 30 and under. So what would you tell these young homies who are never going to get sick and are going to live forever about disability insurance?
Well, obviously, dream on. It's not factual. I think statistically, 1 out of 4 dentists has a claim. So you're playing heavy odds and you can't do much else. You painted yourself into a corner with your wonderful education, which is great, but most of the dentists that I know, if they can't practice, they're bagging groceries because they don't have any other skills.
But they probably all got 2 or 3 years savings saved up in their savings account.
Well, that's true. I forgot. I didn't think about that.
When these guys file a claim, how much savings account does the average dentist have when they file a claim?
Come on, they're
2 weeks.
They're worse than the general population. What they got is debt. That's what they got. And bankruptcy, none of that forgives their student loans. I mean, they're in deep doo-doo.
So then I am again just trying to estimate their questions. So what's a disability claim? A head-on car wreck? They came home, hit a pole.
It's not an accident most of the time. People incorrectly assume that it's usually an illness, and it could be the most common one. Obviously, is back and neck problems for dentists. I mean, that's comes with the territory. Mental and nervous claims, anything that will take you out of the box so that you can't sit at the chair and practice, which is, frankly, I can't think of any profession that's easier to get disabled from than practicing dentistry.
And for you kids out there, I've had out of my first, Ryan, how many podcasts have we done?
Today we released number 282.
So we released 282. We release one every day, but a lot of you kids might be wondering, why have we done 2 or 3 podcasts with dentists who are yoga instructors and things like that? And you might sit there, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I don't want to listen to a yoga lady. I want to learn how to do a root canal. I know if you own a restaurant, you're a chef, all you want is another recipe. But there's other things to a restaurant besides just cooking a recipe. And I've had 2 or 3 yoga people on here. In fact, I had a teacher the other day who's a PhD. Her husband's a dentist. And that's why she got into it,
Okay.
and so yeah, so you're saying back and neck issues are number 1.
Well, that's the most common, but it's like, you don't know what's going to happen to you. Nobody does. I mean, everybody's healthy until they're not, and once you have the health change, you can't get the insurance, so you're SOL. You got to get it when you're as young and healthy as you can, because you're locking in the lower rate forever, and the likelihood. You have more at risk. If you get disabled at 25, your lifetime future potential earnings is a huge number. If you get disabled at 45, it's a much smaller number, your potential earnings. So you're most at risk when you're young, because that's when you've got the most to lose.
Well, talk about how much is it? Because I know what they're thinking. They're walking out with student loan payments. They know what their student loan payment is. So they're thinking this isn't the time to be buying disability.
Well,
how much disability? I mean, is it like malpractice where you buy $1 million claim and
the
a $3 million tail?
I understand. The amount of coverage you can get is a function of the income you can demonstrate. I think for the first year as a new dentist, you don't have to demonstrate financials. They'll just give you a policy. I think it's $4,000 a month.
Between $4,000 and $6,000, depending on whether general dentist or specialist.
Yeah. $4,000
$4,000 to $6,000,
and probably $4,000 general dentist, 6 specialists
without financials. But if a dentist comes out of school and has a contract, they'll go, and if that on the formula allows them to get a higher benefit, they could apply for a higher benefit. So if a guy's making $150,000 a year by contract, the underwriter will say, well, instead of giving him $4,000, maybe we'll give him $7,000 or $8,000 a month.
and who's given? I mean, most people that get a job as an associate are just getting paid a percentage. So a contract, are these big DSOs, or are you talking about?
So if it's within 1 year of their graduation, they'll give them the amount we talked about. After that, they're going to go after their earnings. They're going to have to demonstrate with a tax return or the 1099s or W-2s. They have to pass financial underwriting along with medical underwriting.
And these are kids, so explain what a 1099 and a W-2 is.
Well, since Jeff's the CPA, I'll let him tell you.
Well, a 1090, if you're an independent contractor, you'd get paid on a 1099. There's no tax withholdings. It's just gross income. A W-2 is if you're an employee and the employer withholds all your taxes. So, an underwriter won't let you have your cake and eat it too. If you're a W-2, they'll use that income. If you're a 1099, the underwriter knows that you'll have a lot of business expenses that you'll deduct, and they'll have to make an adjustment from your gross to figure out what you qualify for.
And I don't want to get sidetracked on here, but I want to tell you the reason the dentist you're working for pays you as an independent contractor is because they don't want to simply do FICA matching.
Correct.
But every single time it goes to court, you lose, because when you go to an IRS judge, there's no OJ attorney there talking about if the glove don't fit, you must commit. It's just an IRS judge, and an independent contractor is set up for construction where I'm building a house. I don't know how to do plumbing, so I hire a plumbing. He brings his own tools, his own trade, his own knowledge, and does it. When they take you in front of a judge, the judge is going to say, well, did this Dentist working for you, did he bring his own equipment? No. Did he have his own building, own hours, own staff? No. Oh, so he was an employee.
Exactly.
And he didn't pay his taxes, and you're his employer, and I can give you a name. I can give you 10 names of dentists who had to go pay back taxes on some dentist associate of his for 7 years that waxed out, got on drugs, left the country, whatever.
Totally agree.
And an independent contractor is just bullshit. And I don't like you kids doing this because you're not disciplined enough to set aside tax money. So then come April, some CPA like Jeff says, oh, by the way, you owe the IRS 40 grand. And you're like, 40 grand? I don't have 4,000 bucks. You spent it all. So I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but back to the chase. But how much is this policy? If I just got out of school and if I buy a disability insurance policy and I get disabled, and I get $4,000 a month. How much should that premium cost me?
The premium is going to depend on obviously your age, because it goes up probably 5% a year with each succeeding year that you apply.
Okay, these guys are 25 to 30.
Yeah, and it's going to depend on the monthly benefit that you're buying, and it also depends on the rider. So what are we talking about? There's a cost for different riders. And
Okay, explain what a rider is.
A rider is an extra feature on the policy for an extra premium. For example, the most important one first is the residual rider. Residual rider means that you can collect partial benefits if you have 15 or 20% loss of income or greater. You can get a partial benefit and keep working and collect partial benefits to supplement the income that you were losing. If you don't have a residual rider, then it's a total only policy. And in the years I've been doing this, I think one time I sold somebody a policy without a residual rider, and I disclaimed all over the place, because you really do need to have the residual rider, because a lot of claims are partial claims. They may become permanent total.
Okay, give an example of a partial claim. That means I can't work 40 hours a week, but I can work 30 hours a week?
It means if you've lost, for health reasons, if you've lost 15%, or some companies 20%, loss of income compared to the previous 2 years that you averaged. So if you're taking meds and you have to sleep more, or you get sore from sitting there too long, you want to keep working, like you have a neck problem.
Yeah, I do. My neck's completely.
I could see the way you were doing
I'm
that.
53. At 50, it got so bad. I was getting ready to where I was going to have to
You're a
start
dentist,
taking.
that's why. I mean,
Yeah, it got to the point where I was going to have to start taking an ibuprofen or an aspirin and Tylenol all the time, and that's when I finally decided to take hot yoga.
well, see, now if you
And
had
I'm pain, and
if you had disability insurance. Anyway,
I'm a lot better now than I was at 50, and I'm not in pain. But at 50, when I was driving, when I had to change lanes, I had to turn my whole shoulders
Oh.
because I just couldn't turn my neck, or it'd be like an electrical
see,
shock.
you're like most dentists. You don't want to not work. I mean, you didn't put all those years in training.
Did you say I'm like
into it.
most dentists? Did you just call me crazy?
Oh, you're certifiable. You're by definition. You're certifiable by definition. I get it. Again, remember, I did it for 21 years, so I understand. But I think that nobody, like you're saying, you're doing the yoga and whatever, and it helps. But it's not like anybody buys it saying, "I want to buy this because I'm going to have a claim." Most of them think, And then when I get the call, which I have well over 100 dentists under claim. And you get that call, and it's like they always, that's when they find out how good their coverage is. But then they always say, I never thought I was going to need this and whatever. And I said, I understand. That's the hard pitch of selling it to you.
But you never said the money though. So this is Dentistry Uncensored. These guys are crass.
Let me keep going.
Okay.
So the riders is the residual. If you want a cost of living rider, that's not a cheap rider, but if you're 25 years old and you're collecting $5,000 a month, a residual rider means that every year the benefit will go up. If you're under a long-term claim, by 3% a year compounded, for example, which with one company. So that means that you might start out at $5,000 a month, and if you're permanently and totally disabled, you're going to collect the $60,000 a year, and next year you'll collect $60,000 plus 3%. And it'll keep going, and that compounding it's going to double and triple by the time you're 65.
So what is that? The rule? So interest rate, is that the rule of 72? So you take 72 divided by 3.
Number of years it'll take to double.
Then
right?
take double. So 3 and a 7 is 2. That'd be 6, 12. So in 26 years, 3% would double.
I'll
That
have
should
to
be
check
right,
the
'cause
math, but
well, no,
but
it's 72.
I know that. Well, here, ask Jeff.
Yeah, so it's a rule of 72. So you divide it by 72.
I know that a $5,000 policy, if you got disabled at 25, is going to be 2.5, 3 times that amount
by the time
you're
you're
65. It will
Yeah.
have grown that. So what I'm saying is, there's a rider,
Yeah.
a cost of living rider, cost money. And again, it's an individual matter. They have to go through the cost of these riders when you're asking me what the cost is. So you got the residual rider, you have a COLA rider, you could have a future increase option rider.
Okay, let's slow down. So the COLA,
The
COLA
is
means
the
cost of
the
living
compound-
adjustment.
Right, so that if you have a long-term claim,
And what was the first rider
the
called?
first one was the residual, which is like a partial benefit.
A residual is a
Yeah.
partial.
Residual is that like the 15% loss of income or greater.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of living rider means once you're under claim, that every year it will increase, so that that you might be able to live on the basic $5,000 a month now, but if you're permanently and totally disabled, 15 years from now, that's not going to be so easy because of inflationary reasons. So that's the COLA rider.
Mm-hmm.
Another rider that you might want is the future increase option rider. What does that mean? That means that okay, you bought this policy based on your income, but your income's going to go up in the future, probably if you're a young guy. I hope so. So that means you have the right to buy more without any medical questions or underwriting. All you have to do is show income, and you can buy an additional $10,000 a month without any medical, because you're already locked in. You bought the rider, you're locked in your current health. And even if you have a health change, they have to sell it to you. And another thing that can affect obviously that will affect the cost is the benefit period. How long are you going to pay me? You could get a 5-year, a 10-year, which is crazy, but you could do that. 65 is common, or 70. There's even a lifetime benefit. Okay, that's the most expensive, obviously, because the company's on the hook for the most money.
That's another rider.
No, that's the benefit period, but that affects the price. It affects the premium directly without the riders. So,
Can I add one more benefit?
yeah, please.
There's still a company out there that provides what's called the student loan protector. So all these young dentists that are coming out of school with $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 of debt for a cost, and it depends. If there's a disability, they'll pay up to $2,000 a month for 10 years of your student loan payments. So disability doesn't forgive you from your debt, but if you could get an extra $2,000 that would go to pay off some of that debt, that's a pretty big feature.
That's a good point. That what Jeff is talking about, a student loan rider is over and above what you qualify for financially. And
So
it's
how many
expensive.
different riders can you add on to a policy?
About 5.
So there's 5 riders. So there was the residual partial.
Residual
There was
is
the
partial,
COLA.
the COLA.
COLA stands for cost of living adjustments, and why the America is bankrupt, because they give a cost of living adjustment to all your Social Securities and all that crap. Then there's the
yeah, they give it.
future. Then there's the future income, where
Future income
you can have the
option.
to add more based on your provable income
Right.
without a medical history.
Right.
That was 1, 2, and 3. So what was 4 and 5?
Student loan protector,
4. That was 4.
that was 4. And
Student.
the other one is what's called a catastrophic disability. So an own occupation definition basically says you're totally disabled if you can't work as a dentist or whatever your specialty is, and we'll pay you even if you can do something else. A catastrophic disability would say that if you're catastrophically disabled, early onset dementia, quadriplegia, paraplegia, they'll pay you an additional benefit amount on top of the own occupation benefit age 65 or 67.
If that happened, I would just want to buy the rider where a hitman would just come out here and shoot you if you're quadriplegic.
Now we're talking life insurance.
Dementia. Man, I told all 4 of my boys, if I ever have dementia and don't know their name, to put me in a wheelchair and push me into the swimming pool.
Yes, it will, and that's why if you have a policy that's like a 10-year benefit, at the end of the 10 years, instead of lifetime, we also push you out to the street.
And I just want to say one thing about, you say when you come out of school, because like I say, all my data shows that these guys listening are all probably 25 to 30. They're all just out of school.
Right.
In fact, I'll give you an example, and just to give you an example, I won't give a name, but okay, here's my first email in my inbox. Dear Howard, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for helping all of us fellow dentists out. I'm an orthodontist with a 2-year-old startup practice. I recently began listening to your old 30-day MBA podcasts on iTunes on my drive to work. In fact, I haven't listened to the radio or music at all in the past few weeks. I began implementing your tips and advice as well as mindset, and it started to pay off. Thinking in abundance and being available, open when other orthodontists are not have been the biggest help. I've already nabbed 3 patients this week who do not want to wait a month for a consult elsewhere. I also appreciate your current podcast because they've turned me on to some other fellow dentists like Richard here that are out there trying to help others and not thinking it's necessary. Many thanks. He probably doesn't want me to read his name, but he's in California. But they love this stuff. But I just want to tell you, when he said 4,000, so 25, if you're a general dentist, they'll just give you 4,000. If you're a specialist, 6,000. I just want to remind you guys that America's got 330 million people living in 100 million homes, and the average household income is $48,000 a year. Now, that makes us the richest country. Now, you might have seen every year in The Economist where they list the richest countries, and we're always 4 or 5. But I want to remind you, when they talk about Liechtenstein, that has less people than Tempe. Number 2 was Singapore. They don't even have 7 million people. Hong Kong doesn't have 7 million people. And it's crazy when people compare the outcomes of a country of 1/3 of a billion to a country with 7 million. You should be comparing the United States to China has 1.3 billion. India has 1.2 billion. The 4th most populous country is Indonesia with 280 million. Number 5, who's going to pass America by 2050, is actually Nigeria.